Okay, with neglecting the greenhouse all summer, after all, who works in a greenhouse in the summertime? Seriously. But we're going to go ahead and clean it out and get ready for fall crops. So let's get started, and I'm going to have the help of my daughter today. Pulling out the old Swiss chard that went to seed, and we're going to feed these to the hogs. Well, I'm emptying the contents of these old pots of the dirt, the soil that's in them, and going to backfill this because the dirt settles and decomposes, or the soil, it's not dirt, it's soil, settles and decomposes. And you got to replenish the soil every year. So we're going to be coming in over the top of this and laying a layer of topsoil. And I'm going to have Jamie select the fall crops. Okay, while I'm cleaning up my greenhouse and getting it ready for Jamie to come in and put some soil in and plant, I went ahead and uncovered my worm bin in my bathtub. I'd never done vermiculture before. So I was more or less experimenting and looking online to see how other people were setting it up. And I was afraid that maybe in the greenhouse the location would be too warm for the worms, but I was wrong. What I did was I went ahead and put old plant parts and other organic material in here, a little bit of soil. I wetted it down and put a layer of, the bags, leftover bags from the soil that we put in here, the topsoil that we bought. And it retained the moisture and protected them, and man, this is really good soil. It actually worked. So I'm impressed. So I do want to create a better spot for the bathtub or the worm bin, and I'm going to go ahead and put it in the middle of the greenhouse, because I want to build a two-layer, a really deep raised bed in here to grow root crops like some carrots, turnips, and potatoes through the fall and winter months, I guess. We're going to try it. But yeah, I'm really impressed with this. Oh, a teachable moment. Look what I found. Isn't that gorgeous? Looks like a head of wheat. And it's ready to harvest. So it could be a tare, or is it wheat? The difference between tares and wheat is they look exactly alike when they're growing until they become mature and the crop is ready to harvest, and the fruit is different than the wheat from the tare. Now the wheat is wholesome and nutritious, and the tare, well, it can be toxic and deadly. Nice teachable moment. Now that I have all this room in my greenhouse, I'm going to go ahead and construct a base table system on which that bathtub will sit on, and I can construct a cover for it as a working tabletop, because that cover will also double as a device on which to keep the light out and keep the moisture in and let the worms do their work. Plus it'll be a nice level for me to be able to work with when I'm getting in there and putting soil in or compost in and removing the soil, the nutrient-rich soil. So let's get started. Okay, resource some timber from my resource pile, and then I'm to build the rack, and I got all the pieces cut here, and then also I'm gonna encase it with some of this tin, this corrugated tin that I have in another resource pile, and to make it look kind of halfway decent. Oh look, Mr. Nebuchadnezzar is giving his approval on the clean greenhouse. Okay, goodbye, cat. For me to be able to assemble that, I have to run down to the hardware store and pick up some screws, because I don't have any screws that are of the appropriate length for doing this job. So let's head on down to the hardware store and get that done. Ooh, and I'll show you guys something along the way. Got a little bit of excitement going on in the neighborhood. Yesterday, on my way to town, my wife and I took off and went and looked at a couple things, take care of some business, but we noticed something very peculiar coming up our little road here. And I recognized it for what it was. It was a whole fleet of trucks that were with a movie industry from Hollywood, California. So apparently they are filming a movie or a commercial with my neighbor's animals at his ranch. This is the same neighbor that has some elephants and a rhinoceros and bears and tigers, and it is interesting because the last thing they filmed that I could find was a fella by the name of Jackie Chan filmed a little video with Spike, the rhino. So we'll see what's going on up here. Okay, the movie set is up there. And that's the horses. There's a camel back in here. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, there's some horses. And there's the elephants back up in there. I don't see the elephants right now, but that's where they're shooting the movie. Okay, we have arrived. I'm going to go get my screws, and I'm going to go down to the market and get some milk. Okay, now it's time to assemble this unit. This is what happens when the greenhouse regurgitates its contents. And we got to try to fit all that neatly back into the greenhouse, and that's why I'm building this worm bin, or also known as a vermiculture bin, for processing our food scraps and other scraps. Okay, this is our top support base for that worm bin, so we're going to go ahead and attach it to the legs inside now. Okay, I set a couple of screws over here for it to rest on while I'm attaching this side. I'm going to use my level to make sure it's level, and the legs I had to put on individually and make sure that each leg was level to the ground, because the ground is not level. Let's get this bathtub in place. This tub I resourced from the property that I bought here, Pine Meadows Hobby Farm, and ooh, it fits nice. Look at that. That's what I wanted, like that. But this came out of the old mobile home that was here on the property when I bought it. Very nice. It works. Cool. Okay, we're going to modify this tub just a little bit, specifically for use as a worm bin. I got a drain right here, and I don't want the worms to go down the drain, so I have some leftover metal screening that I purchased from building my bee vacuums. If you'll remember that video, look in the archives. I built a vacuum cleaner to harvest bees from the inside walls and stuff. But I also use this on my solar powered system on the bunny bungalow. I'm just going to cut a little piece out. And I want to cut it as close to possible the diameter of the hole. And we're just going to stick that down inside there. And that way the fluid drains out and down through here into a bucket that I'm going to be setting underneath. And that bucket is going to collect the liquid gold that this produces that will be made into a tea and fertilize the plants around the homestead. Another modification I need to do is I get a screen and cut it to the shape of the inside of the tub, and I'm going to use a silicone seal and I'm going to silicone it in place. That way I pile the debris on one side, the worms break it down into compost, and then I'll put fresh stuff over here once this side fills up, and the worms will migrate through that screen over to the fresh stuff once this is all composted. And then I can just dig that out and use the composted worm castings into the garden and my potted plants to give my groceries a better chance at thriving. Okay, now this don't have to be fancy, it just has to hold it in place. That's all I'm going to do, is just put it on the sides just to hold it in place. I got a bonus today. Not only is my daughter helping with the greenhouse, so are my grandkids.
You want to use this for that? Yeah. It's a little too much.
What you planting?
Planting some kale right now. Kids just helped me plant some spinach. What?
I planted cilantro.
I planted lettuce, Mom. We're still looking for spinach.
Okay.
I'm doing some kale.
see spinach.
Oh, no, how much there is? Okay, so. 1, 2, 3.
I don't know if there's any more in there. So, oh, where did the seed go? There it is.
Send me 2 more.
That's not even seed. Wow. Compared to seed.
These are a little bit heavier because
I
they
know,
got
I
water
just got
added to them.
Oh, just give me packing.
Okay, it looks like Jamie and the grandkids have gotten everything planted. I built this new double layer box for growing deep vegetables like potatoes and deep roots like carrots. And it looks like they went ahead and planted those. Thankful to Nate for putting the dirt in for me while I was building them and put them together. And also Julia and Nate put the fresh potting soil up here in these troughs. And then also top these lower raised beds up. Man, I was really grateful for the help. And now they came in and planted. Got a bunch of vegetables in. I just stepped out of the way and went and worked on another project while they did their planting. And now I'm going to go ahead and go back and tend to this worm bin. I had to let the silicone dry for that center piece. So yeah, it's dry now, so I can add the soil back to the worm bin and get my official vermiculture in place. So let me try to explain again how this works. I have this divided with a screen, and the screen's big enough to allow the worms to pass through, but also keep the dirt or the soil on this side. What I do on that side, the clear side, is I start laying down organic material and carbon material. Carbon being shredded newspapers and grass clippings, if you will. Organic material, food scraps, cuttings from plants, and all that, the worms from this process side will migrate over through the screen to the side that has the fresh material in it, and they'll start composting that. After all the worms have migrated through, they'll start eating the stuff here and creating well, worm poop, which is called worm castings. The worm castings is the gold. That's what we're after. This is worm castings. This is what is gold for plants. Plants will take these nutrients because there's all kinds of mycobacteria in here besides just earthworms. There's little bugs in here. There's fungi. There's a whole bunch of other microorganisms that are working to decompose this. And the heat, warmth, helps speed up the decomposition process. So that's why it's good to have it in a greenhouse. This worm bin alone for a year. Make sure I cover it, have some wet over it, and it doesn't dry out too much because the worms, you don't need it too wet, but you need it moist enough to keep the worms from dying and drying out. So we're going to cover this for now because I don't have a tabletop for this with a plastic coating or sheeting, and I'm going to wet it down a little bit before I do. This is also known as vermiculture. That's enough. That was simple with a skill saw, but be sure you reverse the saw blade so the teeth go in the opposite direction, and also always use ear protection. Got to protect your hearing. These pieces I just cut are for wrapping the outside of this worm bin in and give it some more, oh, let's just call it aesthetics. Let's get this together. Doing it this way also strengthens the box. There's my jerry-rigged vermiculture, aka worktop table for the greenhouse for working on potted plants and what have you. And yeah, I think this will suit me just fine. It looked very nice for its purpose, very utilitarian. Just have to fabricate a tabletop for this, and I think what I'll do is I'll just make it two pieces, and it'll hinge in the middle and it'll hinge up, and that way I can still have plants or pots sitting along the one edge, and I can still access the soil in here on this one side and also access the other side for dumping in the organic material for the worms to eat. Worm poop on one side, worm food on the other side. Put a bucket right here under the drain so I can catch the drippings and have a nice worm tea for the garden. Next step is load up under here all of the empty pots that we can get out of the way. And so let's do that now. Well, that concludes this episode on cleaning up the greenhouse and getting it ready for fall crops and establishing or building my holding a table for my vermiculture. And that's it. Oh, I did find out about that movie thing up the street. It was a commercial, and they were the neighbor said that they were using one of the elephants that used to belong to Michael Jackson, the pop star. That's where the elephant is. But anyway, that's what they're filming, is a commercial. Interesting. I'm your host, Jerry Hansen, here at Pine Meadows Hobby Farm. I want to thank you guys for showing up and enduring this long episode with us, getting help with my grandkids and my daughter. Stay tuned for more videos. You can follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, Reddit, Google+, and Blogger. And also tune in to the next video. I'm putting the awning over the back porch on that barn. So we'll see you guys in more videos. Bye-bye.
Bye.